Okay, we're down around the starter here. Very important thing right here. You notice that black wire? A lot of people, when they're putting the car back together, put that onto the solenoid. That is a ground. If you put it onto the solenoid, the car's not going to work. So after we disconnect that, then we've got some wires behind the solenoid, which I can't even begin to see. So we're going to have to do the Braille method there, I think, and see where those things are, and identify the colors as we take them off one by one. I have a wireless inspection camera that I got at Harbor Freight. I think I paid $99 for it, that I'm going to try to use to see the connections on the back of the starter solenoid. So I'm going to try and set that up so that both me and the camera can get a view of it while I'm using the probe to go in and see what's what up there. Okay, that's a picture. Hopefully it's recording well because I can't see the camera, but that's a picture of the back of the solenoid. It looks like a 5/8 inch on the big battery cable, and probably 3/8 inch. There's a red wire. That one is to the outside of the car, away from the block, and then there's another wire closer to the block. Appears to be a black wire here, also in a 3/8. So I'm going to try to take those wires off, and we'll see which terminals they were actually on once we get visibility to it, when we've got the body off and everything, so that we can tell exactly where those wires went. But to the outside of the car, red wire towards the block, looks to be a black taped wire in this case. Right over there. So I will use the Braille method, but at least now I know what I'm going after. I probably need, I don't know if I need a deep well socket on those or not. I'll let you know after I get them off. But I'm not going to disconnect the solenoid from the starter, or am I going to pull the starter at this point? Okay, I've gotten all the electrical connections off the starter solenoid. Turned out to be one of the hardest things so far in this project. There is not much room there. This car has headers, so access is probably a little different if you don't have headers, but what I ended up with, I had a wire that's got a red crimped on connector with a fiber wrapping on it, or shroud around it, that was on the outboard small connector on the solenoid. And I had this wire, which I believe should be a fusible link. I can't tell from the outside whether it is or not, but if it is, it's not stock, so at one point somebody must have replaced it, because it doesn't have the two little barrels, rubber barrels on it. Normally that's what a fusible link has. That was on the big stud on the top of the solenoid, along with this battery cable. Comes directly from the battery. That was on with a big nut and a washer. It looks like those are, that size of that nut is actually a 19/32. Who has that in their toolbox? I did end up getting it off with a trusty 15 millimeter metric wrench. Wasn't an exact fit, but it was close enough. Those aren't usually on very tight. There wasn't much of a swing, so you're not going to get a 6-pointed socket in there with, it's going to be tough. I couldn't actually even get it in there because of the header. If you don't have headers, as I said, you may have better access. And then somewhere around here, I got to find it. Small wire on this car. Again, looks like somebody's been in here and done some stuff, but a small wire went to the connector on the solenoid that is closest to the block. It's wrapped in black tape on this car. So those are all off. I actually, because I was having trouble getting into that stuff, I actually considered for a moment trying to drop the starter, but that's really not the best way to go about it, because then you're fighting the weight of the starter, which is probably a good 20-30 pounds. I don't know exactly. But I was able to get eyes on it from this angle, and that turned out to be very good, because it was very helpful in being able to get that big nut off to get the wrench on it. It's really tough with all those wires in there to do it by braille. So you can just barely see the big stud up on the top. That one on the bottom is, this one here is actually going to the starter. Up at the top here, it's behind that the little stud where the red wire went is the connection for the battery cable. So it was good to be able to see it, but it is difficult, not much room to work, not a very big swing you can take with the wrench. And on this car at least, which I suspect would be standard, it's kind of an odd size. So when you go after this, you've got your work cut out for you. But it's off, and I've checked all the wires up above it. They appear to not be connected anymore to the engine, just to the body, so I think we're good there. I forgot to mention whenever I was talking about the solenoid connections, the small nuts that hold the small wires on it ended up being 11/32 socket. I used a deep socket on them, and that was the best way to get them off.